This is Stressed. I'm Kerstin Lindquist, health coach, author, and Emmy award-winning TV host. I've committed to helping people reduce stress through impressive health science, attainable mindset change, and biblical truth. Let's have a real conversation with zero judgment and endless solutions that you can use. You aren't alone. You can do this. Let me help you reduce stress and make room for rest. This week, we're joined by the incredible Dr. Funke Afolabi-Brown, a sleep specialist and author of Beyond Tired. She's here to share her CREATE method and practical tips for achieving better sleep starting tonight. Well, I'm thrilled to have you here because, you know, my heart revolves around sleep. When I'm working with clients, that's the first thing that I'll work on with people before anything else, no matter what their goals are, because I truly feel like if we don't get a handle on our sleep and try and fix it, we're not going to hit any of our other goals. So let's dive right into what can people do to get better sleep?
Very, very practical, very simple. I have an acronym that I use. It's called CREATE. So create restful sleep habits. And I think this is important because when people Google sleep habits, there's so much information out there that it ends up being confusing. So CREATE. C stands for consistency. So have a consistent sleep time and a wake-up time. This is really important for our circadian rhythms. R stands for routine. And it's all about finding those routines that calm you and get you ready for bed. E is environment. So optimizing your bedroom environment, making sure it's cool, it is dark, and it is noise-free. A is assign the bed for sleep, such that you're not spending time in bed, awake, tossing and turning and things like that, or using your computer or your phone and things like that in bed. And then T stands for tackle technology. So really limiting that exposure to blue light and things like that as you get closer to bed. And then the final E, I usually will talk about eliminate. So eliminate, caffeine too close to bedtime, alcohol, or, heavy meals and just mental drama before bedtime.
Mental drama. I love it. I love an acronym too. CREATE is fantastic because it's something that we can understand, we can write down. I always encourage people who are listening to this to take notes and then write these things down wherever they see them so that they continue to reinforce them. But let's go back and let's dive deep into each of them. So let's start with C, which you said was consistency. Yep. What does that mean? You said a consistent bedtime and wake up, but is there, as a doctor who studies sleep, is there a better time for us to be going to sleep and waking up?
No, not really. Honestly, it's about finding the rhythms that work best for you because we have what we call our internal clocks or circadian rhythm. And some people have a delay in their circadian rhythm, meaning that they are the night owls. So these are people who get that burst of energy in the evening and maybe they need to sleep in a little bit later. And then you have some people who are the morning larks. So these are the people who naturally start to feel sleepy very early, maybe 8 p.m. or 8:30 p.m. Now,
that's me.
Oh, really? You know what? That's
oh,
me
yeah,
as well.
for sure.
So
is it?
Imagine trying to sleep misaligned with your circadian rhythm. It's going to cause a lot of issues. So if you are a night owl, don't try to go to bed at 8:30. You're going to be tossing and turning for like 3 hours before you go to bed. So it's really about focusing on that timing that works naturally and the best for you, and also focusing on getting good quality sleep and good and quantity. So if you're a night owl and you know that, okay, I'm probably going to need to sleep in till about maybe 9 a.m. if you have that luxury, then going to bed at, 12 midnight might be okay for you. Now, if you have a job you need to go to and you need to wake up early, it will cause some friction because you're not naturally bent to wake up at 6 a.m., right? But there are ways you can optimize your rhythms, like exposure to bright light in the morning.
Yes.
Making sure that you try to be as consistent as possible with your schedule. Those are ways that you can use to sort of optimize and be consistent while you're kind of augmenting your circadian rhythm.
So I've always heard, and I don't know why this stuck with me, but I've always heard that the hours of sleep that you get before midnight are worth more than the hours of sleep that you get after midnight. But I think what I'm hearing you say is maybe that's not true.
No. You're right. The first half of the night, you tend to have a lot more deep sleep. But the first half of the night means different things for different people. Like you and myself, who are morning logs, our first half of the night is taking place, earlier, like, before 12 midnight. But if
Yeah.
you have a night owl, their first half of the night, if they don't go to bed until 11 p.m., is like, like about 3 a.m. or 2 a.m. So again, it shifts. And I don't want people to be so bent on now trying to force themselves into rhythms that really don't work for them. So the way sleep cycles work is that you get into light sleep, then you get into deep sleep, which is that deep restorative sleep a lot of people talk about. And then you get into REM sleep, which is that dream sleep where you get a lot of memory, emotional regulation, and all of that. But you're cycling through all those stages all night long. So don't feel as if, oh, I missed my first half of the night, therefore I'm never going to get deep sleep. You will. It's just that the more you sleep, the more REM sleep you're getting. So again, it boils down to just try to make sure that you're going to bed at a time that's very well aligned with your circadian rhythm as much as possible, and really try to focus on optimizing the things that are within your control. Like you can't necessarily change who you are in terms of your rhythms. You can make some adjustments to make sure that you're getting good sleep and your environment is optimized. And so that's really my take on that.
Okay, so let's say we have somebody who has that night owl tendency, but their schedule, their life makes it so that they have to wake up at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning. What do we say to these people?
Oh, I say I'm so sorry.
Truth.
And then also I say, see what you can advocate for. I've had people that I work with who never imagined that their bosses would allow them to come to work a little bit later and stay at work and stay in a little bit later. And that was what they needed, and it changed their lives. So see what's available. Don't feel like you're necessarily locked in, because this is something that you're going to do for a while. So you want to enjoy your job, but it should not be at the expense of your health, right? So assuming you're where you are, maybe you're working towards that change, there are things you can do. So one of those things is light. Light is one of the biggest cues of our circadian rhythm. So if you find out that you're someone who naturally wants to wake up at 8 a.m., but your job or whatever obligation you have is saying you have to be out of bed by 5:30, I want you within the first, like maybe 30 minutes, make sure that in that kind of situation, you're exposing yourself to light within the first 30 minutes of getting out of bed. Now, it might still be dark outside, so natural light is ideal, but of course, it might still be dark outside depending on where you're living. Artificial light is a good one. Turn the lights up brightly. You might need to get what we call a light box. So that gives very sort of relatively high intensity light that you put maybe in your bathroom or somewhere where you can kind of hang out for about 30 minutes. What that will do is that it will suppress your brain melatonin secretion so that you start to feel more alert. And then you're almost like you're retraining your body clock to learn to wake up at 5:30. It's a retraining. As soon as you stop that retraining, you're definitely going to shift back to your natural rhythm. But this is a way you can almost like trick yourself into going to bed, into being able to wake up early. And then at bedtime, of course, that will mean you have to go to bed earlier than you naturally would. And so we would do the direct opposite. You would want to avoid bright lights I would say about 2 hours or so before your goal bedtime. So making sure that maybe if there are dimmers in your house, you turn the dimmers on, making sure that if you're using your phone, you're kind of using the blue light filter or wearing like amber colored glasses. You start to almost create an artificial environment so that it tricks your brain to think, oh, yes, it's bedtime, so that the brain melatonin can come up.
Wow. There's so much goodness here. I always tell everybody that I work with that it's sun before screens. So before you look at your phone, before you look at a TV, because we always roll over in bed and grab our phone, right? You get light. And the best thing you can do is go outside and get like the red light, the yellow light of the beginning sun for your circadian rhythms and your melatonin production. But a lot of people are waking up before the sun. So this idea of getting a light box is fantastic. I've told people those seasonal affective disorder lights. Is that similar?
It is. It is very
Yeah.
similar because a lot around this time of the year, it gets, around winter time and all of that, where it gets dark early. You start to see a lot of people struggle with, seasonal affective disorder, depression, all of that. So we typically will recommend. So it's almost two for the price of one. You already don't
Yeah.
feel exactly motivated to get out of bed. So now that exposure to that light box can absolutely help. And it's usually the same thing.
So in this idea of consistency, is there a magic number, doctor? Everybody should get 8 hours of sleep, 7 hours of sleep, 9 hours of sleep. Is that a thing?
I make this analogy that, your sleep needs are like your shoes, right? Shoe sizes vary. So if you tell me to put on a size 7 pair of shoes, it's going to hurt. It's going to be tight and it's going to feel uncomfortable. And also, if you tell me to put on a size 10.5 pair of shoes, I'm going to trip over and fall. So I'm not going to tell you my shoe size, but it's somewhere in the middle. So really, it's about figuring out what works for you. The general recommendations are 7 to 9. Most people fall within that 7 to 9 window. But then we also know they're genetically short sleepers and that there are also genetically long sleepers. So these are the people that, they survive on 6 hours of sleep naturally. This is their gene. It's not something they sort of learn. Because on the flip side, I've heard people say, no, I think I'm a genetically short sleeper. And you're like, no, I think you're just sleep deprived. And you don't want to own up to it, right? But usually 7 to 9 is the range. But you have to listen to your body. Like, how do you feel when you wake up in the morning? How do you feel during the day? Are you reaching for caffeine the first time you wake up? Are you drinking caffeine all day long because you're trying to stay awake? In that situation, I would think, oh, maybe you need a little bit more sleep, or maybe something's wrong with your sleep quality. So I think it's really important to really find that spot, but it varies for varying individuals.
How should you feel? That's always a very interesting aspect when I'm working with clients. They're like, well, I'm getting this much sleep, but I'm still tired. Or I'm hardly getting any sleep, but I wake up feeling great. What are you looking for when you're trying to figure out somebody, if they're a genetically short sleeper or long sleeper, if they're sleep deprived? Because I know it's a big part of it. Numbers are one thing, but how you feel is another.
Absolutely. And when we talk about sleep, we talk about sleep quality, sleep quantity, and the sleep timing. So a lot of times people focus on the quantity. So quantity, you want to check that. You want to make sure you're getting that like close to that goal of 7 to 9 hours. And then the quality is that sense of restoration that you feel, that feeling of refreshment that you get. Now, a lot of people can't identify it because they've been so exhausted for so many years.
Their entire life.
Like, but if you can create a space for yourself, maybe if you're on vacation where you're just having unscheduled time to rest, listen to your body and see how you feel when you wake up. It's hard to describe, but when you get that good sleep, you will know it. Now, if you're, you don't have to wake up to an alarm, there's no alcohol on board, there's no caffeine, there's no kids jumping all over your bed, and you just get to sleep. That feeling you have, that refreshing, almost like, oh my goodness, sun rays coming out of the window, you're like, that feeling, that is how you're supposed to feel. But you don't always have to feel that. You may not always feel that way. One, because of many different things. You might get enough sleep and have issues with your sleep quality. So if you have something like sleep apnea, if you have restless leg syndrome, if you have an underlying medical disorder or sleep disorder, no matter how much sleep you're getting, you might feel tired. The second piece is stress. If you're under intense stress, no matter how much sleep you're getting, if you don't address the stress, you're still going to wake up feeling kind of wonky, kind of tired. So you have to take care of all those pieces as well. So I don't want you thinking, oh, Dr. Brown said I should sleep 7 to 9. Now I'm 7 to 9 and I'm still not feeling refreshed, because there are many issues that could play a role. It might be stuff you're eating. I know you talk a lot about movement and nutrition. All those things do play a role in how you feel when you wake up in the morning.
So let's follow the line of magic numbers. Is there magic numbers when it comes to how much REM and how much deep you should be getting?
There are ranges that's expected, but it varies for different individuals. So for REM sleep, typically people will say you should get about 20-25% of your total sleep. If in terms of deep sleep, people will say, well, maybe about 25 or so percent, and then light sleep is about 50%. Now, that's a perfect, what we call sleep architecture, right? But we all know we live in an imperfect world. And so
Yes,
if
we
you
do.
have sleep deprivation, you may notice that you have a higher amount of slow wave sleep because your brain knows how to compensate from night to night. So if you've had a couple of nights where you didn't sleep well, something was going on, by the time you get to like maybe the third or fourth night, you're going to have a higher proportion of slow wave or deep sleep. So you'll see that there will be variability. If you drink caffeine a lot, you're going to see that your deep sleep is sort of suppressed and you have more light sleep. If you take a lot of, again, alcohol or things, you may see what we call REM rebound, where you may sort of have all kinds of wild dreams and wake up with what we call a hangover. So there are many things that play a role in your sleep architecture. That's one. And the second piece is that there is individual variability. I might have 25% of slow wave sleep. You might be a 23%, 23%er. I don't want you stressing trying to find the remaining 2%. You know what I mean? And the reason why I'm saying this is I have people come to me with a boatload of data from their sleep trackers. And they're like, Dr. Brown, I need to figure out how to get more deep sleep. And I'm like, how are you feeling? I feel great, but my tracker says I didn't get enough deep sleep or whatever. So there is the data, which can help inform some of the decisions you make. But you also have to pay attention to how you're feeling, listening to your body and giving your body what it needs. The other flip side is if you have a sleep disorder like insomnia, that also kind of throws everything off. And I know a lot of people obsess over data, especially people that struggle with chronic insomnia, around why their sleep is not perfect. So you really need to take that data with a grain of salt, making sure you pay attention to your body and just naturally give your body what it needs.
Oh, I am so guilty of this because, and I'd love to know your opinion on trackers, but I kind of look at that and go, oh my goodness, my deep, I'm not getting enough deep, because that's kind of me. I do enough, but for me, I would love to have more deep. My REM's usually really, really good. And I am a woman who is concerned about dementia and Alzheimer's because it runs in my family. And I'm like, I need the brain healing in deep sleep. So I worry about that as well. So I think sometimes I have to put the tracker down.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, deep sleep, I think it's what is that data telling you and what's it doing to you? If it's creating more insomnia and more worries, you need to put it down because now you get into what we call orthosomnia, where now you're perseverating about the sleep data, which makes it harder for you to get good sleep. But if you're just really basically using it to inform your decisions, oh, do I need to, eat a certain way? Oh, I'm exercising for 30, 40 minutes. Is it making changes in my deep sleep? Oh, those kind of informed decisions are good. There's nothing wrong with that. But you really have to make sure that the obsession is not an issue.
What do you think about trackers? Do you like them? Do you recommend them? What do you think?
For otherwise healthy people looking to optimize their sleep, I'm fine with them. I think they're helpful, right? We track our diets. We
Yeah.
track our fitness. We absolutely should have an idea of what's going on with our sleep. But I think it's what we're using it for. Some people are now using sleep trackers to try to diagnose themselves with sleep disorders. I think that is where we draw the line. But if you're using it to just inform the kind of decisions you make, where do I need, this, I've been told this caffeine might be impacting my sleep. Oh, the days where I skip caffeine, wow, my data looks a little bit different. And use that to make healthy, informed decisions. I think that is absolutely good. But if you're now fixated on it, by the time many people come to see me, they are fixated on this stuff. So I'm literally weaning them off their trackers. But, I have other people who maybe, by the way, let's just optimize your sleep. We could absolutely use the trackers. I'm not throwing them all out, but I think the goal, what are you using it for, is what's important.
Let's go to our routine. Okay, so what is a good, healthy sleep, like before bed routine or wake up routine that helps with optimizing your sleep?
Yeah, I would say this first to start, that there's no perfect routine. The perfect routine is the one that works for you. So really, you have to think about 2 or 3 calming activities that head in the direction of the bedroom. I usually like to talk about, 3 pillars for a good bedtime routine. One is your body. So find what will nourish your body. The second is what will nourish your mind or your soul. And then the third is your spirit. So when it comes to the body, we're talking about a little bit of massage, a little bit of stretching, a bath, right? Hygiene. If you're someone who eats, you eat dinner super early, maybe a little nighttime snack, that is within that category of body, right? And so you could pick and choose. If you like to turn on certain calming music or scented candles, that's fine as well. The second, which is your mind, is really around maybe reading a book, right? Journaling, listening to music, talking, connecting with a loved one. That gives your mind that space to calm down. Maybe writing down your to-do list for the next day so your mind is not racing.
Yeah, get it out.
Yes, exactly. And the third is your spirit. Really, prayer, meditation is a big one. Practicing gratitude. So what is it that brings you joy and keeps you centered? So that's the third one. So spirit, soul, and body. Really, when you feed all those three, then you really are setting yourself up for good success. And the way you go about it, some people would prefer to listen to a sleep podcast. Some people would prefer to listen to like a guided prayer or meditation. All of those nuances really now depends on you.
Wow, that's great. I tell people 3, 2, 1, 3 hours before bedtime, stop eating, 2 hours before bedtime, stop drinking, and 1 hour before bedtime, shutting everything off. And what I'm hearing you say is maybe there's a little bit of adjustment there. Like a couple hours before bedtime, we want to start to lower the lights and maybe turn off the electronics. The eating one's interesting to me because I've always thought, and maybe this is anecdotal because it's how my body is, and we know every body is different, but I've always thought that going to bed on an emptier stomach actually gives you better sleep. What do you think about that?
So it all depends on what your nutrition has been like during the day. If you've not necessarily had high enough protein, complex carbs, it may end up causing you to be hungry. And if your blood sugars are low at night, you're going to wake up. This is one of the reasons why we have these waker-uppers at 2 a.m., especially women, 2 a.m. and 3 a.m. Now you're starving and you're wondering why, right? So I always will recommend avoid heavy meals. You're absolutely right, because your body should not be fully in digestion mode when you're going to sleep, which is why you want to give that 2 or 3 hours before bed, your dinner, right? But if you want to take a small bowl of oatmeal, nothing high sugar, a handful of nuts, just enough protein to make sure that you're not waking up with those hunger pangs is absolutely okay. Now, though, if you're someone who has a high tendency for having reflux and indigestion, please stay clear. You may need to stay clear of that. But I usually say it's fine because what I noticed with my work is a lot of women, especially women midlife, would now have this 3 a.m. of incredible cravings. They'll go straight to the fridge and then binge. And then try to go back to sleep. And good luck with that, right? You can imagine what that does to your sugar levels, what that does to your metabolism over time. So if we're proactive with giving our bodies just some energy source, at times that gets through. I also see that with a lot of kids, right? Bedtime, all of a sudden they're starving. So giving them healthy options ahead of time really can help reduce those nighttime routines.
And you will become more metabolically flexible the cleaner your nutrition is, which is why we say whole foods from quality soil. You being starving in the middle of the night or before bedtime could have something to do with eating fake food during the day. So the more of that high protein that the doctor's talking about, and nuts are great, and good quality fats and complex carbs are great. I also always recommend, and I know this kind of flies in the face of what we've heard in the past, but that having a good quality carbohydrate, especially if you're a woman, at dinner is helpful to encourage you to sleep. So, and that's like sweet potato, quinoa, those types of things. I'm not saying have a loaf of bread with dinner. That's not what we're talking about there as well. That's great. Let's touch on that middle of the night wake up. So blood sugar is a reason why that you just said, or somebody is doing intermittent fasting the wrong way, which I always tell all of my listeners, make sure you are under the supervision of somebody who knows what they're doing. And you don't just say, well, I'm just not going to eat dinner. I'm just not going to eat breakfast. That's fasting. That's not the type of fasting we're talking about. So that could definitely keep you up in the middle of the night. But we also know that 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the middle of the night wake up has a lot to do with perimenopause and menopause. Right? What do we do, doctor? Fix it. Help us.
It's life. Deal with it. Just kidding.
No.
Yes, very common. And there are many reasons. Environmental is a big factor. Both, I would say, your internal and external environment. And that's a lot of things. I've actually been on a mission to talk more about that. Many times we talk about how to optimize our external environment, but our internal environment is in utter disarray. So if you're going to bed with a busy mind, that busy mind is eventually going to wake you up. It's going to let you sleep, especially if your sleep drive is high, but you're going to wake up with that said mind if you've not dealt with thoughts, feelings that have accumulated through the day. And I see this with a lot of women. By bedtime, they're exhausted, and so they just crash into bed.
Yes.
And so this is where having a routine, even if it's, I tell you, even if you're like, well, how do I fit a 20-minute time of meditation? You don't have to. If you don't have that, it is okay. 5 minutes, 5 things you're grateful for. That's it. Just make sure you put something down. Either you talk it out, you pray it out, or you write it down. That is a big one. Create that buffer. It is so important. So that mind routine is a big one. The second thing I would say is, of course, stress, right? Chronic stress. Now, people will say, well, how am I supposed to get rid of stress? Stress is just part of life. Yeah. But find ways to manage it, right? Sometimes stress overwhelms us so much that we don't even know what's the difference between us and our stress, right? So make sure, whether it's relaxing strategies, whether it's therapy, whether it's, medication in some instances, you want to try to, whether it's boundary setting. So these are things you really want to take care of during the day to prevent it from really consuming your night. Now, another part of the internal environment, especially for women in menopause and menopause, is, those hot flashes, those feeling like you're burning and then all of a sudden you're cold again. Now, that is challenging, right? And that's really because of hormonal changes. So there are various options for this. I usually like to let's try the more natural route first. So let's figure out, how can we make sure the room is cool enough? How can we make sure you're using breathable beddings? How can we make sure that even if you need an additional, like a fan or something, or like a cool mattress topper? So essentially you're trying to prevent those hot flashes and night sweats from waking you up. In some situations, we'll do like some supplements. They're different, like more holistic supplements people have used. Passion flower, hops. Some of these things can help. And then in some situations, especially if it's really out of control, you may need hormone replacement therapy. I know HRT has gotten a really bad rap with, oh my goodness, it's causing cancers. It's the type, the format, and who is administering it. So if you're struggling and your sleep is so much of an issue, there are different options, and hormone replacement therapy is not off the table at all. And then, the other piece I would say that's really important around this time, especially when we're in like our 40s and so on, and sometimes even earlier, sleep disorders are a big deal. Women are often grossly underdiagnosed for sleep apnea compared to men, because you're not necessarily snoring like a truck driver. You're not necessarily having this whole scary episodes. You may just have, you're fatigued when you wake up, or your mouth feels dry, or your mood is low, and you're gaining a little bit of weight. Some of that might be related to sleep apnea. So when you've done all these other strategies, like I've talked about with the internal environment and optimizing your external environment, if you're still struggling, it is absolutely time to see a specialist to get tested for sleep apnea. Sleep apnea can lead to higher risk of heart attacks and strokes, and women get these as well. So you don't want to miss that. Insomnia is another one, in which case you might need treatments like cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia. And so again, you can see there's so many layers to this. So I think really trying to figure out root cause, internal environment, external environment. Of course, following all the basic sleep hygiene recommendations is important, But I think these are some strategies. Now, temporarily, if you're in a situation where, okay, you've done all of that, maybe you tried your best, and now you're in the middle of that 3 a.m. wake up, really struggling, really frustrated, at a loss for what to do. There are many reasons that is happening. The reason is that your internal system is making this like a stressful situation. It's like a, saber-tooth tiger. Oh my gosh, we didn't sleep well. We're going to be a hot mess in the morning. And so your brain now starts to associate being in bed with having a state of anxiety. When you're in that situation, sleep is not going to come. What you need to do is actually get out of bed, especially if you've been struggling like this for almost 20 minutes, or you're starting to feel that sense of frustration. We recommend getting out of bed, sitting comfortably, under dim light conditions, and just doing something relaxing, something to help you wind down again, so that increased arousal system does not get in your way. And so that might look like reading a book, it may look like journaling, it may look like listening to music, it may look like anything, but what makes you calm down? Do that. And then sleep is going to come. When sleep comes, just get back into bed.
Oh, all of this is just golden. Thank you so much. It's so, so helpful. And I really appreciate that you took away, at least in your opinion, any fear of HRT. I'm a big fan as well. I'm not there yet for myself, but when the time comes, I will be. And I do a lot of research on that. And you're right. It's the type, it's who administer it. And it's also you, we're all different. We're a bio individual. So what might work for me might not work for somebody else, but I don't want everybody to be afraid of that. And it can give women a lot of relief. I am going to ask you at the end if you have any supplement recommendations, but we'll get to that in just a second. I wonder if, because I have people journal first thing in the morning. I wonder if doing, and I have this list of 10 questions that I have everybody ask them, how are they feeling? Humility. It's all very connected to the Bible. I know you're a woman of faith as well. What's going to stress you out? How are you going to react? All of those things. I wonder if asking those questions to yourself at night just to get it all out, if that could help release your brain.
100%. 100%. I think gratitude, we bookmark our daily gratitude. Start with gratitude and end with gratitude for sure. But at bedtime, you want to make sure you check in with yourself, because there's so much going on in our subconscious, especially if we're busy women. Like, there's some things you've not had a chance to process. And so then your subconscious is ultimately processing it during the night. And that might contribute to, interrupted sleep. So I love that you do that. I think that is a phenomenal way to address some of those thoughts that we're going to bed with, which now comes raging, especially when it gets dark and quiet.
Excellent. E. What's E?
So E is environment. So you want to make sure that your environment is dark. I think of it like a cool, dark cave. Mm-hmm. It is dark, it is cool, not frigid, and it is free of noise or noise disruptions. Because your brain produces a hormone called melatonin. That's the sleep hormone. It makes you feel a little bit sleepy. It's not a sleep medication or sleep aid. But it helps set that environment, and it's responsive to light, dark cycles. So when your room is nice and dark, it helps with the production of melatonin. And cool, your core body temperature drops as you fall asleep. So this is really important. If you're too hot, then you're going to have very restless sleep. You don't get that benefit of good sleep quality. And then the noise piece, of course, we know. I mean, if there's a spouse next to you snoring, you know how you feel, right? So, if there's noise from outside, all of that. So you might need like a white noise machine. You might need, noise canceling. You may need like earplugs. For light, if you can't get like a blackout shade or something like that, you may need like a sleep mask. So these are all tools that you can use to optimize your sleep environment. They make a big difference when it comes to getting good sleep.
Love that. Yes. Environment, super, super important. What do you think about like true dark or blue light blocking glasses before bed?
I think they work in terms of, the studies that have shown that exposure to blue light before bed can delay sleep onset. Mm-hmm. I would say don't obsess too much. I mean, I think just practice healthy, be reasonable about it. Because what we found too is that, yes, the blue light will suppress your sleep onset, but the content of what you're consuming, in fact, the content is more dangerous than the blue light itself. So if you're
Wow.
on social media, if you're watching the news, it's much more alerting than blue light suppressing melatonin. So really for that reason, you want to make sure that you think about it. There's a lot of the things we're consuming on devices, on our phones, on TV. They are designed to keep us on there. So many times, and I have found myself doing this too, right? When you're just like, oh, I'm just going to check for some updates on the Instagram. And then checking for updates become 1 hour later, how did I get here, right? So there's a reason why it is engineered that way. So it can suppress blue light. It does displace your sleep time, and the alerting content is going to make it hard for you to fall asleep.
So good. Yes. Social media before bedtime is the kiss of death for your sleep. So please put that away. And I also tell people, I love to put your phone on grayscale as soon as it starts to get dark, if you are looking at your phone, because we know that the colors in your phone are part of what's rewiring your brain and programs you for that dopamine hit. And that goes away as you take away that color. So putting your phone on grayscale. And it's interesting, you'll have to Google it to figure out how to do it, because the phone companies make it very hard for you to do that because they want you to keep checking in on your phones.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. That takes us to A.
So A is assign the bed for sleep. So really important, because the bed can become, our brains make very rapid associations. So if your brain is used to being awake in bed, doing all kinds of non-sleep related activity, when it's time for you to sleep, it's going to really be hard to wind down. So many of us, our bed becomes our dining room, our dinner, our movie theater, our office space, the place where we argue with our spouses and worry and worry. You really want to make sure you make the right association. Your brain is supposed to see the bed and know, oh, sleep, not see the bed and say, oh, movie time, oh, dinner time, right? So really strengthen those associations and use the bed for sleep alone as much as possible, and of course intimacy. And so I think that's just such a big piece. Again, to answer that question of this mind racing and waking up at 2 or 3 a.m., sometimes it's because you've done so many other activities in bed that your brain just has a hard time making the right association.
I hope everybody is cluing into the fact that this is not just biological sleep. This is not just, oh, I'm tired, I'm not tired. Your brain is making connections between so much. I love how you said, if you start to be somebody who wakes up in the middle of the night and you have anxiety, your brain's going to learn that sleep is a time for anxiety and you have to retrain it. And same thing, if you're doing something different in your bed than just sleeping, it's going to learn that this is a time to do that, even if that's not what you want to do at the time.
Yes,
so good. All right. Then there is T.
Tackle technology. So we talked a little bit about that, right? The impact of technology. So really, I would say 60 to 30 minutes ideally. Before bed, you really want to put it away. The blue light thing, the blue light blocking glasses are great. It's helpful. But again, the content itself is very stimulating. So even if you use blue light, it's like you said, social media just before bed, it's really, really an issue, because by then you're exhausted. So you're not making very great executive decisions. Like, oh, social media is not great for me before bed. It's like, oh, I want more of that dopamine hit because you're tired. So really have a technology plan, technology curfew for you and for your entire family. I think that's really important. I love the grayscale idea, because you start to lose interest. I mean, who wants to watch grayscale, right? Things just are less interesting. So if you can set
my daughter says, it's so depressing. I don't want to look at it. It's depressing. And I was like, that's the point. If it makes, so you shouldn't look at it.
Yeah, exactly. That is the point. You just need to really be accountable. You need to set, because there's no, and I've looked at this, so it's so funny you said you researched it, to see is there a way to automate it, but they didn't create that function. To be able to automate it where at, I don't know, maybe 7 p.m. it goes to grayscale. No, you have to intentionally go into the internal settings to change
like
it.
4 steps. So doctor, I've been thinking about this for like 2 months now. Maybe we should do it together, that we should build an app that we can, we can automate it. I think that is like a brilliant app to have.
I think so. We need to take this off the camera though,
Yeah.
so that.
Yeah, we could cut that part so people don't do it. But it's so important. I agree to have that. I
Oh my
love that you said technology curfew. And,
God.
I, being somebody who, not to the event, the level that you do, you're a doctor in this, but I counsel people through getting better sleep. I realize that, and for me, that magic number kind of is 6 p.m. I have to walk away. I have to, and right now, especially because it's dark earlier,
Yeah.
no more social media, no more looking at emails. Emails drive me crazy too. Double more checking of email, none of that. Just get off that phone.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think people will respect you for that. When you set those boundaries where people don't feel like, this is what I attribute it to. When you bring in technology into your bedroom, into bed with you, you're bringing the whole world into your bedroom. Your bedroom is meant to be a sanctuary, a sacred space. But when you're on social media, you're bringing all your followers and the followers of the people you're following into bed with you. You're bringing your boss into bed with you. You're bringing all your clients into bed with you. That's what you're doing. So you do need to set those boundaries. So I love that.
Yeah, that does not make your bed a sanctuary. It's the same thing first thing in the morning. If you roll over and you look at those things first thing in the morning, it's like you have 45 people yelling at you and shouting at you first thing in the morning. Why would we do that to start our day?
Exactly. That's true. That is so true.
All right. And then there is E.
That's eliminate. So really, this is where you need to take stock, right? You may feel tired and feel like you need caffeine, but caffeine is a stimulant. It stays in your system for hours and hours, depending on how you metabolize. Anywhere from 6 to 8 hours is the half-life typically. So if you're drinking caffeine close to bedtime, and this can be coffee, iced tea, you name it, soda, it robs you of deep sleep. You're really going to have very fragmented sleep. Alcohol is a sedative, which might put you to sleep, but it metabolizes so quickly that you then wake up multiple times at night with what we call REM rebound, which is really not what you want. And then, spicy foods, heavy meals, just take stock. Take stock and say, hey, something is up here. What do I need to get rid of? What are the habits I need to improve on? Okay, I need to embrace bedtime routines. I need to get rid of XYZ, social media, mind drama. So that really loops back into routine, right? If there are things that are going on in your life, try to let go of them before you go to bed. If there are people, if there are relationships, if there are things that are going on, if there's social media or followers that you're like, oh my goodness, when I turn my phone on and I see this person, it just makes me stressed. You need to eliminate all of that and set the right boundaries.
You are so much kinder and gentler than I am when we talk about things like caffeine and alcohol. I am like, hard no. And listen, I love coffee. I love black coffee. I love the taste of coffee. I have really definitely moved a lot more to decaf. So I'll have my full cup of coffee, but I wait a couple of hours after wake up because of the cortisol effect there, and make sure I have protein first. But then I kind of go to decaf, and then I'm for sure done by noon, like done. And I hear from a lot of people, but caffeine doesn't really affect me. I can have a glass at 7 o'clock or a cup at 7 o'clock at night and I'm going to be fine. And I say, you think you're fine, but maybe you could be really good.
Yeah, I love that. And it's the same. Just like even with enough sleep, like, oh no, I think I'm okay with 6 hours of sleep. I don't know what you're talking about, the 7 to 9 hours. Well, you're okay. How about let's aim for great? So It's the same.
Yeah. It all goes back to the whole reason that I do this. The reason for this podcast is to help women gain confidence and create more space for joy. And so all of these things are little tweaks that can help you have more joy. You might be fine now, but let's really aim for good. And then the alcohol piece. That's always a big one because we're now learning that there really isn't a safe amount of alcohol. Now, same thing I would say with sugar or excess sugar or processed sugar, but we're still going to have it, right? And most people are still going to have a glass of wine or a cocktail from time to time. But what I've always said is you're going to ruin your sleep that night. You just will.
Absolutely. And then you have to, I think, going in with that awareness. And like you said, it's not just sleep. It's all this research we're finding out about the effects of alcohol and increased risk of certain cancers and the toxins and things like that. And for me, I think I like you said, it's if you're making this decision, understand the risks. So you're going in informed because now you know. Now you've heard this.
Right. Yeah, it's so true. I use an Ultra Human ring. That's the tracker of choice. I also love the Aura ring if you're all out there shopping for these. Both of them are great. And there's a metric called HRV, which is your heart rate variability. And that's the kind of measuring how fast you and how well you go from sympathetic to parasympathetic. And you will note that when you have alcohol, your HRV completely tanks. Like 12 hours before, 18 hours before, your HRV will still completely tank with alcohol. If I'm going to I maybe have a drink a month, and I know we're recording this before Thanksgiving. I know that I'm going to have a cocktail at Thanksgiving. I decided last week, I have family coming over, and honestly, funny, it's going to be like at noon. So, or 1:00 in the afternoon, because I know if I do it closer to bedtime, then I'm really in trouble. But I'll just take off my tracker. I'm going to let myself have that one cocktail and have the carbohydrate food and enjoy it and not be obsessive about it.
Oh, love it. I love it.
Yeah.
And you'll stay up late, hanging out with family. And it's really, but you are the one making that choice. You're choosing that, right? And it's the, almost similar to that 80-20 rule, right? It doesn't mean like it's always going to be perfect. You need to still create space for flexibility. So that is so gracious. I love that.
Yeah. You're the first one in this podcast who's bringing up 80-20. And I love that rule. Explain that to us.
So I would say this, it's a little bit, so think about it as, 20% of what you're doing will give you the 80% of your results. The same with sleep. So prioritizing it will give you 80% of the results you want to see, and you apply it to all aspects. So if I spend my time and invest in ensuring that I prioritize my sleep, 80% of the time, that little decision will give me the best bang for my buck. But you still have leeway. We said 80%, not 100%. So it's not always going to be perfect. But if you can make that intention about your approach to, as you would with any aspect of your health, approach to sleep, I think it's extremely liberating and empowering, such that, yes, I will have Thanksgiving, I will have the holidays, but they're holidays. Thanksgiving Day, it's not Thanksgiving month. So I will not indulge in in high carbs till the end of the year. But I will have the day, maybe the day before, even to enjoy it, so that the rest of the time I can really focus on optimizing my health.
Yeah, it's such a great rule to live by. How do you feel about naps?
Naps are my love language. Beautiful.
Yes.
Naps are invigorating. They help with blood pressure. They help with memory, mood, attention, so many good things. It's about the why and the when and the how. So why? If I'm using it just for a little self-indulgence, like, I just want to take a short 20-30 minute nap, that is beautiful. I don't recommend taking naps too late, because if you do that, then you will not have enough time to build a high sleep drive to be able to fall asleep easily the next night. I would also not recommend taking a nap that's like 3 hours long, because now you're going to be getting into deeper stages of sleep and hitting what we call sleep inertia. Many times you may feel like, oh my gosh, I took a nap and I feel almost worse. And sometimes it might be because the nap has become too long. So you want to keep it short, and you want to keep it early and sweet. And then if you're in a situation where you need a nap and not just want a nap all the time, so meaning like, I'm so exhausted, I always need a nap. Right. That means two things. You're chronically sleep deprived, or you have an underlying sleep disorder. It's one of the two. So again, it all depends on what is going on and why you're taking that nap.
I'm also a big fan of NSDR, non-sleep deep rest,
Mm.
on the internet. Sometimes it's called yoga nidra. Because again, as a woman who's 47 years old in perimenopause with the racing brain, it kind of helps me get out of my head. She or he, whoever you take these short breaks from, kind of talk you through your body. And I find it very, very helpful. I do love to do that. Some type of meditative or nap, especially on the days that I've had a lot. But it's interesting because this entire conversation you're giving us very wonderful practical tips, but it's also a mindset shift in that one of the things you said very early when I said, well, what if you're that person who wants to go to bed late because that's your sleep cycle, but you have to wake up early because of your job? Sometimes you have to make some hard decisions in order to protect your sleep. And it is worth it because sleep impacts your health so much. So to bring this full circle, why is this your life's work? Why is it so important that we get good sleep?
I mean, I think it's my own personal journey. I struggled with both, burning the candle on both ends for years with my kid, my job, being all things to all people and answering everybody else's or solving everybody else's problems while I was literally burning out, right?
Mm-hmm.
And seeing how much, like you said, intentional boundaries freed me to take rest and to hold on to it was something I realized like a lot of women are not doing. We prioritize everything else. We don't want to let people down. We don't want to show up as if we're lazy because we're saying, no, I want to sleep instead. I want to be done with work at 6 p.m. And so changing that narrative has been a mission for me. And there are many reasons why you might not sleep. You might not sleep because your child is not sleeping. You might not sleep because your mind is racing. You might not sleep because you're struggling with a sleep disorder. And so tackling the root cause of all of this is something that I want to do, where it's not just a band-aid or the next gimmick, but like, how do we look at this, like you said, holistically, full circle? How do we make sure we help people realize, well, you probably want a well-rested version of me than the burnt out and irritable version. Trust me, you do. And so really empowering women to do that.
Yeah, it's so true. You don't make good decisions. You don't feel good. I always cry more when I'm lack of sleep. You definitely can have a happier life. And lack of sleep really does lead to health problems. And so we want to make sure that we take care of that. Are there supplements that you like?
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on what is going on. Again, a lot of women that I work with have racing minds, insomnia, and things like that. So before you go off to take melatonin, which I'm not necessarily a fan of, it's a hormone.
Yeah, me too.
It's, we think of, okay, what are things we can augment? Many times we're magnesium deficient. So really around like, can we supplement? Like magnesium tends to be a very nice, it helps relax your nervous system. So that's something I usually will recommend. L-theanine is also a very great one. It helps again with that sleep-related anxiety that a lot of women might have. And then GABA. GABA has similar functions. Some people do better with L-theanine than GABA. So those are usually my top three, ashwagandha, all of that. I don't see as much. Some people say that they see benefits. I haven't seen that work as well. But you know what? At the end of the day, I think don't look at it as, oh, this is going to fix all my sleep issues. The role is to just augment healthy sleep habits and support. Exactly.
Yeah. Do you have a dosage on L-theanine and GABA that you like?
It varies. About for L-theanine, usually about 200 milligrams.
Mm-hmm.
For GABA, it depends on the preparation. I think sometimes you'll have like about 300 milligrams. Now, telling you this is important that you talk with your doctor, because if you have any underlying condition, you want to make sure that you're not taking it and there's some kind of interaction. But that's usually where I start with.
Yeah. Yeah. And while Dr. Brown is a doctor, she's not your doctor. So it's very important, and everybody is different. So it's very important that you do your research and that you talk to your practitioner before you take any advice from this podcast. That's very, very important. I do also do magnesium, L-theanine, and GABA. I love all of those. I also do glycine as well. And I agree with I try to be rare in my melatonin. Sometimes certain types of times during my cycle, I feel the need for a little extra support. And that's the other thing. If you are still a cycling woman, when it comes to your need for support, it's going to go up and down with your cycle. So there's definitely some nuances there. We just need to have you back, Dr. Brown, to talk more about these things, because I could talk to you for two hours on all of this. Last question I always ask everybody is, so what's one thing I can do today? Somebody's listening to this today, tonight, to help. And the broader topic is to reduce my stress. What would you say?
I would say journal. I feel like journaling changed my life. Taking those thoughts, no matter how cluttered they seem, from spiraling out of control in your mind, and putting it on paper and stepping back to say, how much of this is really true? Or what is one thing I could do to answer this question that keeps puzzling my mind? It is incredibly empowering. And I always say this, it's not thesis. Nobody needs to read it. Just put it down on paper.
Yeah.
So that's
so true.
Yeah.
I always say there is power in taking pen to paper. And if you're not a person who takes pen to paper because you don't like writing, say it into a voice note. Say it out loud. Get it off of your chest.
Oh, I love the voice note. I'm going to have to steal that, Kerstin. I love that. That is good.
Yeah, it's a great one. All right. Where can people find you? Because everybody should have a Dr. Brown in their life.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. So I'm on, my website is a good place to start. It's www.restfulsleepmd.com. You can find me on Instagram and other social media at Restful Sleep MD. So those are the main places to find me. I have a book. It's called Beyond Tired, a sleep physician's guide to solving your child's sleep problems for good. And I really delve into all of this. I mean, with a lot of focus on kids, but there's also a whole chapter or two actually for parents. So definitely give that check that out. It's on Amazon.
I highly recommend her book. We will put a link to that in the show notes for sure. Everybody pick that up. And it's just as important for your kids as it is for you, because if they're not sleeping, you're not sleeping. I cannot wait to continue our relationship, have you back on the show because you've been so wonderful, and hopefully be on a stage with you again sometime soon, because you're just a blessing to so many. So thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. The feeling is mutual.
Bye. Coming up on the next episode of Stressed, I welcome Jennifer Coffey, TV host and manifestation guru. What you hold in your brain grows. So how can we hold on to our goals and make them a reality? She also happens to be one of my closest friends from QVC, and I can't wait to share our stories with you. Don't miss this perfect way to launch into 2025 with the January 1st episode of Stressed. Thank you for joining me on this journey to reduce stress and make room for rest. Remember, you're not alone. Keep coming back, share your story, ask for help, and give yourself grace.